Right now on Capitol Hill, another high-profile name, former Barclays CEO and J.P. Morgan executive Jes Staley, is facing questions about his ties to convicted sex offender, the late Jeffrey Epstein, in a transcribed interview before the House Oversight Committee. Epstein was a client of Staley's during his time running J.P. Morgan's private wealth and asset management divisions. The UK's Financial Conduct Authority uncovered over 1,000 emails between Epstein and Staley, in which he referred to Epstein as family on several occasions. Staley has not been charged with any criminal activity and has said he has no knowledge of Epstein's crimes. Oversight Committee Chair James Comer previewed what they're looking into.
We know that while Mr. Staley was at J.P. Morgan, there was internal discussions, according to some of the documents that we received, that J.P. Morgan was concerned about Epstein as a client, that he was a high-risk client, but Jes Staley was the one person who continued to defend Epstein with that firm. So we're going to ask a lot of questions about that.
All right, let's bring in ranking member of the Oversight Committee, Congressman Robert Garcia of California. Congressman, it is good to see you, and I know we're about an hour into Staley's interview. Can you tell me what you've learned so far and if lawmakers are satisfied with any of his answers?
Yeah, look, he's going to be with us actually the entire day. So there's got a lot of questions that we have. I think what people need to know, which is really important, and this is someone that essentially called Jeffrey Epstein family. I mean, they were best friends, close friends for over 10 years. And Mr. Staley was very aware of the crimes and really what Jeffrey Epstein had pleaded really guilty to, which was the abuse of women and girls. And so why he maintained and continue to advocate for him, help finance him, get him access to capital are the questions that he's being asked and that we'll be asking throughout the day. The other important piece is there are, quite frankly, credible accusations of sexual abuse by survivors against Mr. Staley. And so he's being asked what he knows about those. He's being asked a bunch of questions about the financial ties of Jeffrey Epstein and how Epstein was able to amass the fortune that he was able to amass over that period of time.
Walk me through why the financial picture here, the sort of follow the money piece, is so important when it comes to these two men.
The follow the money piece and the financial piece is at the center of the investigation. And we have been going through just endless amounts of documents, bank records, statements from J.P. Morgan Chase, from Deutsche Bank, from other financial institutions that provided Epstein with his wealth. And when you think about someone like Jeffrey, who essentially his entire life, he gained enormous amounts of wealth and brought in these billionaires, these millionaires in his circle. And these are people like Les Wexner, like Leon Black, like Mr. Staley, who we're talking to today, that provided this money. And what did Jeffrey Epstein use the resources for? To sex traffic women and children, to abuse girls. Him and Ghislaine Maxwell used their access to capital to create this, essentially one of the largest sex trafficking rings in modern history. And so there are a lot of questions that have to be answered, and where that money was actually coming from and who is providing it are key parts of the investigation.
I'm curious to what extent you feel like you're going to be able to trust his answers today. You know, to add some context for our viewers, the Epstein files show that Staley was named as a trustee of Jeffrey Epstein's estate until at least 2015, despite telling a UK court last year that he had declined a request to be named one. We know that Bill Gates also name-checked him recently. What do you think that was about?
I think that from what I have seen and heard so far and what I expect to hear, he's going to be deflecting a lot of questions. He doesn't want to address some of the credible accusations that have been made against him by women and survivors. And he is not and has not been up to this point a credible person. But at the same time, we have him on record. His name appears in the Epstein files enormous amounts of time. And so he's going to be forced to answer real questions and forced to talk about real emails and communications that he had with Epstein. And on top of that, we know and have direct accusations from survivors that he is going to have to answer questions about. Now, the unfortunate part is that Chairman Comer refuses to have these interviews in public. He refuses to make these interviews videotaped and then released immediately to the American public. This, quite frankly, should be a public hearing. And so we're going to continue to make those demands. But this will be an important day, and we do think we're going to get some important information out of Mr. Staley.
I want to turn toward immigration for a moment, because that's another area in which there is immense public desire for more public hearings and accountability and answers from this administration right now. In the aftermath of the shooting and killing of 2 different immigrants and fathers here in Maine and in Texas. And I want to get a sense of what comes next there. I talked to your colleague, Benny Thompson, just the other day, and he was reacting in real time with alarm to the fact that some basic policies and procedures weren't even put in writing for ICE agents. There really was no clarity on how these investigations are actually going to unfold. Walk me through the questions, the answers that you need right now from this administration about what comes next with ICE and its policies.
I mean, ICE is out of control and first should be abolished. It is essentially Donald Trump's personal police force that he's using to enact his wishes across the country. We know right now that these ICE agents are less trained than they've ever been. They're coming in and out. They're causing chaos when they conduct harm and when they're actually causing real harm. In some cases, the murder of U.S. citizens, of people that are here working with legal status, when they're causing chaos across the country, many of them are then being put right back into the field within a week or 2 after a shooting. And so ICE needs to be reined in, which is why we should stop funding this rogue agency. And Donald Trump's going to continue to use ICE for whatever he pleases, including, by the way, intimidation around election time. And so those are real serious issues as it relates to Maine and Texas and Minnesota and so many other places. Oversight Democrats have been investigating every single one of these cases. And what we are finding and have found in the past is that clearly these are violations of people's rights. There's violations of due process. And these ICE agents have to be held accountable individually and the agency as well. And you best believe, and I've told folks, when we win that majority, these agents, those that are putting these rules in place, will all be held accountable through the courts and through the Congress.
Congressman Robert Garcia, good to see you, and thank you.